right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a perhaps a little more unorthodox or unexpected stream. So if you guys don't know, there's this, I don't know what to call them, like service, I guess, that is called Dracula Daily that put the Dracula book together in, well, I don't know why I'm frazzled. Okay, so the Dracula book is written in epistolary form. It is written like a letter. And so what Dracula Daily did is that they took the letters and they send them out on the actual days. So today is May 3rd. There is a letter in Dracula that is sent out on May 3rd, or is dated on May 3rd. And so they send out the letter on that exact date. I don't know how different things are from the original novel. And I really would like to find out so that on those days, like if there is something that's changed, I would like to go grab the original and read you guys the actual true version. But basically, I have signed up for this newsletter for 2 years, and I have not gotten through the entire book for 2 years. Wait a second. Hang on. I realized I missed something. Yeah, there it is. Cool. Okay. Eddie says, I've signed up for this newsletter for 2 years and I haven't gotten through the entire book for 2 years. It's such a mood. I'm glad I'm not alone. But yeah, I think it's just that I get behind and then I don't catch up. I get behind. I'm like, oh no, now there's so many and now there's more coming in. How do I catch up? So I cannot promise that this will work. I can't promise that I'll actually manage to get through the book this way. But I was thinking about this a few weeks ago and I was like, oh, Dracula Daily's about to start up and I want to read Dracula with my stream followers, and so that could be a really fun thing to do, is to actually read it as it gets sent out with these newsletters. So I will note though that there are some days that just won't work, and this is actually going to be a good little example, I guess. So tomorrow is the actual writing group stream. There's a chance that I could read the next one tomorrow, especially because it's short, but it will be much easier to read it today. So I have both May 3rd and May 4th up, ready to go. So as long as I don't run out of time, because I only have about 30 minutes, as long as I don't run out of time, then I will just read both May 3rd and 4th, and so we are going to have to play it by ear like that, like especially on stream days and Saturdays and stuff. It will be more difficult to read them on the actual day, so it might be that I'll read something ahead of time, or sometimes I might catch up later, and hopefully that doesn't become a problem. Hopefully I actually do it and stay accountable. But yeah, so that it might happen that I'm not able to do it on the day, but my plan is to, as best I can, read it as it is sent out. And so that is what we're doing. We're starting today. And I was thinking when I thought about it, I was like, oh, I should order the physical book, because they came out with a physical book, and then read it from that like I do Pride and Prejudice. And I just was like, yeah, I'll do that at some point here. And then I just got the email this morning. It was like, Dracula Daily begins! And I was like, I didn't order anything! So here it is on the screen. I had to copy it from my email, so I apologize if I didn't catch some of the italics. I didn't copy them. Yeah, so here we are. And I also apologize because I'm probably gonna mispronounce some things. And I think the last thing I want to ask is this, what is this short for? Is this memo, or like what am I supposed to say there? He says, I just find it easy to forget about and then ignore newsletters. That's fair too. Very fair, very fair. Let me check if there's a cat at the door. There's not. No cat. Eddie is typing. I will wait for Eddie to type before I begin. Can you see it okay? Is it big enough? But yes, we will begin with Jonathan Harker on his journey. I've only read the PTBR translation of the novel. Now I'm wondering if that mem is supposed to be short for memento, as in reminder, based on context and how people loved to use Latin back then. Okay, I can say memento, and if I'm wrong, next time I'll say the right thing, hopefully. What does PTBR mean? And how is it different from this translation? That Portuguese Brazilian. Gotcha. The difference is it's in a different language. That makes sense. All right, let us begin. May 3rd. Jonathan Harker's journal, kept in shorthand. The 3rd of May. Bistritz. Left Munich at 8:35 p.m. on the 1st of May, arriving at Vienna early next morning. Should have arrived at 6:46. But train was an hour late. Budapest seems a wonderful place, from the glimpse which I got of it from the train, and the little I could walk through the streets. I feared to go very far from the station, as we had arrived late, and would start as near the correct time as possible. The impression I had was that we were leaving the west and entering the east, the most western of splendid bridges over the Danube, which is here of noble width and depth, took us among the traditions of Turkish rule. We left in pretty good time, and came after nightfall to Klausenberg. Here I stopped for the night at the Hotel Royal. I had for dinner, or rather supper, a chicken done up some way with red pepper, which was very good, but thirsty. Memento. Get recipe for Mina. I asked the waiter, and he said it was called Paprika Hendel, and that, as it was a national dish, I should be able to get it anywhere along the Carpathians. I found my smattering of German very useful here. Indeed, I don't know how I should be able to get on without it. A friend of mine has actually made that dish, I think last year, when around this entry, and she said it was super good. I want to do that too, but I haven't. Of course, I didn't get around to it last time, as we're establishing. Also, something that I find so funny about this chapter is that I'm like, when I write, it's like, should I include like these little details about like what they ate and stuff? Like, I don't think so. I don't think people need to know what they ate. And over here, Jonathan's like, I ate this dish. Here is exactly the ingredients, and here's what I thought about it. In today's world, you would not recommend starting your first chapter of your book with what your main character ate that day. I just checked my copy of the book. They translated that mem as Lembrete, reminder. So I think that my theory of memento holds for what it's worth. Gotcha. Alright. Having had some time at my disposal when in London, I had visited the British Museum and made search among the books and maps in the library regarding Transylvania. It had struck me that some foreknowledge of the country could hardly fail to have some importance in dealing with a nobleman of that country. I find that the district he named is in the extreme east of the country, just on the borders of 3 states, Transylvania, Moldavia, and Bukovina, in the midst of the Carpathian Mountains, one of the wildest and least known portions of Europe. I was not able to light on any map or work giving the exact locality of the Castle Dracula, as there are no maps of this country, as yet to compare with our own Ordnance Survey maps. But I found that Bistritz, the post town named by Count Dracula, is a fairly well-known place. I shall enter here some of my notes, as they may refresh my memory when I talk over my travels with Mina. There are 4 kinds of writers. Me, writing stories like essays and keeping things short. Kaylee, fighting her own thoughts on how detailed to be. Bram Stoker, talk about all the meals. Tolkien, talk about all the things. Very true, very true. It's just like, keep it bare minimum, nobody pees, nobody eats. And then, next level from that, maybe a few details. And then, all right, I'm going to talk all about the meals. And then Tolkien is like, I'm going to tell you every detail about every tree. So, like I said, I have read this part. I should refresh my memory on how far I got. If I remember correctly, as far as I got was when stuff started to go down with Lucy, like when Mina is like, I tried to lock the door and pet her hair. It ain't working. I think that's the last place that I got to. So I have read this before, but I remember how shocked I was when I first read this, because I'm more familiar with stuff like Castlevania, where the whole goal of Castlevania is getting to the castle. And so I was so surprised to actually start Dracula, because I was thinking it would be like that. That's like, oh, that's the climax, is when they're at the castle and like fighting him and stuff. And then it just starts with Jonathan being like, I'm making my way to Castle Dracula. And I was like, you're making your way to what now? And I saw a post, I think it was like a Tumblr post, that's like, the funniest thing about Dracula is that the characters don't know that they are in Dracula, that they are in the book Dracula, which seems very accurate from what I've read so far, that it's like, oh yeah, my buddy the Count, and it's like, he ain't your buddy. Awesome. Let's spend a whole page talking about why these trees look like the 2 trees of Valinor and why that matters. Amazing. Yeah, exactly. So today I'm going to visit Sauron in Mordor. Yes, that's totally what it feels like. I am curious, like when people read this at the time, if they thought that, if they knew, Dracula's a vampire, oh my goodness, Jonathan, you're in trouble. If they're like, all right, yes, he's going to visit a nobleman, all right. All right, let us continue. In the population of Transylvania, there are 4 distinct nationalities. Saxons in the south, and mixed with them the Wallachs, who are the descendants of the Dacians. Magyars in the west, and the Skellies? Do you know how to pronounce that? Can you help me out with that one? In the east and the north. I am going among the latter, who claim to be descended from Attila and the Huns. This may be so, for when the Magyars conquered the country in the 11th century, they found the Huns settled in it. I read that every known superstition in the world is gathered into the horseshoe of the Carpathians, as if it were the center of some sort of imaginative whirlpool. If so, my stay may be very interesting. Memento. I must ask the Count all about them. Yeah, you do that, buddy. Ask the Count all about the suspicions of the people. I did not sleep well, though my bed was comfortable enough, for I had all sorts of queer dreams. There was a dog howling all night under my window, which may have had something to do with it. Or it may have been the paprika, for I had to drink up all the water in my carafe, and was still thirsty. Towards morning I slept, and was awakened by the continuous knocking at my door, so I guess I must have been sleeping soundly then. I will note that my friend who made that dish, she did say it gave her weird dreams. But I do think it's really funny that he's like, yeah, I had some weird dreams. Might have been the dog ominously howling. Might have been the paprika. We'll never know. I am also curious if the dog has any meaning, because I know that Dracula can A, control dogs, and B, become a dog. And so I don't know if Dracula's just out here, keeping his buddy up all night, or if it's just a coincidence. Yeah. Lord Sauron, serve me the traditional dish of his people, the Maiar. Oh, amazing. Okay. To check the pronunciation, seems something close to Tseklis. How do you pronounce TS together? TSEH. Is it Tseklis? Okay. I had for breakfast more paprika, a sort of porridge of maize flour, which they said was mamaliga, and eggplant stuffed with forcemeat. A very excellent dish, which they call impletata. Memento, get recipe for this also. I had to hurry breakfast, for the train started a little before 8, or rather, it ought to have done so, for after rushing to the station at 7:30, I had to sit in the carriage for more than an hour before we began to move. It seems to me that the further east you go, the more unpunctual are the trains. What ought they to be in China? What does that mean? What ought they to be in China? Oh, I guess he's saying if you go east, they're less punctual. So in China, they wait 4 hours, for the train. I just love the, like, again, like today, we would be like, you don't need to have your main character keep saying, get the recipe for this. And it's like, nope, he likes his food. He's going to get the recipes. It's important. All day long, we seemed to dawdle through a country which was full of beauty of every kind. Sometimes we saw little towns or castles on the top of steep hills, such as we see in old missals. Sometimes we ran by rivers and streams, which seemed from the wide stony margin on each side of them to be subject to great floods. It takes a lot of water, and running strong, to sweep the outside edge of a river clear. At every station there were groups of people, sometimes crowds, and in all sorts of attire. Some of them were just like the peasants at home, or those I saw coming through France and Germany, with short jackets and round hats and homemade trousers, but others were very picturesque. The women looked pretty, except when you got near them, but they were very clumsy about the waist. They had all full white sleeves of some kind or other, and most of them had big belts with a lot of strips of something fluttering from them like the dresses in a ballet. But of course, there were petticoats under them. The strangest figures we saw were the Slovaks, who were more barbarian than the rest, with their big cowboy hats, great baggy dirty white trousers, white linen shirts, and enormous heavy leather belts, nearly a foot wide, all studded over with brass nails. They wore high boots with their trousers tucked into them, and had long black hair and heavy black moustaches. They are very picturesque, but do not look prepossessing. On the stage, they would be set down at once as some sort of oriental band of brigands. They are, however, I am told, very harmless, and rather wanting in natural self-assertion. So he does use, I remember he uses this word a lot, that he always is like, they're picturesque, and I guess that means beautiful, I think. It's like, oh yeah, they look nice, they look pretty, but it's just funny because we only really use that word for landscapes, and it's like, yeah, this person, picturesque, Also, the woman looked pretty, except when you got near them. Burn! Burn, Jonathan! Man! Like, he's so polite to seemingly most of the time, and then he just drops something like that. Like, oh yeah, they're very pretty! Until you get near them. And then I'm curious, because I know that there is an actual cowboy in this book, and so I don't know if, like, because Slovak does not say cowboy to me. So I don't know what this means exactly. I don't know if he's describing a cowboy hat, but that's not what, like, modern day people would picture being a cowboy hat. Or if it's like, yep, we got these European people and they wear cowboy hats. Here in Texas now too, yeah. I don't know if my dad has a cowboy hat or not, but if he does, I should go, like, find it and, like, put it on for all of Quincy's lines. That's gonna be fun. Oh, I get to do an actual southern accent. Slovaks are from Eastern Europe, as in the country Slovakia. That's what I thought, yeah. So what are they doing wearing cowboy hats? What does this mean? I'm also curious what clumsy about the waist means. Like, if he means, like, oh, their clothes are all... Because he does go on to talk about, like, their belts and stuff. And so I don't know if he's talking about their clothes or if he's, like, calling them fat. Like, I don't know what that means. I feel like he gets kind of judgy, but I feel like a lot of people at that time were like that. Yes, yeah. I need to see how they translated cowboy hats to Portuguese. If you have Dracula on your shelf, you should grab it and figure out how they translated it. All right. Okay. It was on the dark side of twilight when we got to Bistritz, which is a very interesting old place. Being practically on the frontier, the Borgo Pass leads from it to Bukovina. It has had a very stormy existence, and it certainly shows marks of it. 50 years ago, a series of great fires took place, which made terrible havoc on 5 separate occasions. At the very beginning of the 17th century, it underwent a siege of 3 weeks and lost 13,000 people, the casualties of war proper being assisted by famine and disease. It has had a very stormy existence, and it certainly shows marks of it. I like that a lot, and I feel like that's how a lot of us would describe our lives. We'd be like, oh, how have you been these last few years? Well, I have had a very stormy existence, and I certainly show the marks of it. Count Dracula had directed me to go to the Golden Crone Hotel, which I found to my great delight to be thoroughly old-fashioned, for of course I wanted to see all I could of the ways of the country. I was evidently expected, for when I got near the door, I faced a cheery-looking elderly woman in the usual peasant dress, white undergarment with long double apron, front and back, of colored stuff fitting almost too tight for modesty. When I came close, she bowed and said, "The Herr Englishman?" "Yes," I said, "Jonathan Harker." She smiled and gave some message to an elderly man in white shirt sleeves, who had followed her to the door. He went, but immediately returned a letter. "My friend, welcome to the Carpathians. I am anxiously expecting you. Sleep well tonight. At 3 tomorrow, the diligence will start for Bukovina. A place on it is kept for you. At the Borgo Pass, my carriage will await you and will bring you to me. I trust that your journey from London has been a happy one, and that you will enjoy your stay in my beautiful land. Your friend, Dracula." I love that is how the first chapter ends. I mean, granted, I don't know. I guess that's not how the actual first chapter ends, but I love that in this version of the story, like, this is day one. It's just like, oh yeah, here's a nice letter from the person I'm visiting. Your friend, Dracula. It's like, oh, okay. I do plan to do more of a, like, traditional Dracula voice, but I think I need to practice that, so I did more of a, like, Jonathan reading it, so sort of voice for today, I guess. Let's see. Well, I don't know what I expected, because they basically translated it literally to, Caro. Though we don't use that word necessarily as meaning cowboys from the Wild West. We tend to borrow the English word for that trope in particular. So I guess it was some sort of hat often used by European herdsmen or something. Found this. That makes more sense. That makes a lot more sense. I don't really know how to describe this hat, because you guys can't see it, but it's like, I guess, a squunched bowler with some feathers on it and, like, a band around it. It's not a great description, but it's what came to mind. But yeah, and I was so caught off guard when I first read this of how polite Dracula was, and he's gonna continue to be that way, but it's just like, oh yes, I anxiously await your arrival, good sir. And it's Dracula. Amazing. But yes, let us read the May 4th entry as well. May 4th. Jonathan Harker's journal. Kept in shorthand. The 4th of May. I found that my landlord had got a letter from the Count, directing him to secure the best place on the coach for me. But on making inquiries as to details, he seemed somewhat reticent, and pretended that he could not understand my German. This could not be true, because up to then he had understood it perfectly. At least he answered my questions exactly as if he did. I love the matter-of-factness of this, that, he's like, oh, like, no, I don't understand you. It's like, you understood, we've been talking for 5 days, man, you understood me every other time. What are you saying, huh? Yes! I love it. And he says, I anxiously await your arrival with this beautiful golden ring you speak of. Your friend, Sauron. Yes, exactly the vibes. Alright. He and his wife, the old lady who had received me, looked at each other in a frightened sort of way. He mumbled out that the money had been sent in a letter, and that was all he knew. When I asked him if he knew Count Dracula, and could tell me anything of his castle, both he and his wife crossed themselves, and saying that they knew nothing at all, simply refused to speak further. It was so near the time of starting that I had no time to ask anyone else, for it was all very mysterious and not by any means comforting. That is a good reaction, at least. This is mysterious and not comforting. But could you imagine, like, of course, like, crossing yourself was much more common back then, but just the idea of, like, oh, hey, I'm gonna go visit this nobleman who's invited me. Do you know anything about him? And then they're just like, we don't understand you. You'd be like, what? Yes, Dracula Daily, welcome, Death's Head. Just before I was leaving, the old lady came up to my room and said in a very hysterical way, "Must you go? Oh, young Herr, must you go?" She was in such an excited state that she seemed to have lost her grip of what German she knew, and mixed it all up with some other language which I did not know at all. I was just able to follow her by asking many questions. When I told her that I must go at once, and that I was engaged on important business, she asked again, "Do you know what day it is?" I answered that it was the 4th of May. And she shook her head as she said again, "Oh, yes, I know that, but do you know what day it is?" On my saying that I did not understand, she went on, "It is the eve of St. George's Day. Do you not know that tonight, when the clock strikes midnight, all the evil things in the world will have full sway? Do you know where you are going, and what you are going to?" She was in such evident distress that I tried to comfort her, but without effect. Finally, she went down on her knees and implored me not to go, at least to wait a day or two before starting. It was all very ridiculous, but I did not feel comfortable. However, there was business to be done. I could allow nothing to interfere with it. I therefore tried to raise her up and said, as gravely as I could, that I thanked her, but my duty was imperative, and that I must go. She then rose and dried her eyes, and taking a crucifix from her neck, offered it to me. I did not know what to do, for as an English churchman, I have been taught to regard such things as in some measure idolatrous. And yet it seemed so ungracious to refuse an old lady meaning so well, and in such a state of mind. She saw, I suppose, the doubt on my face, for she put the rosary round my neck and said, "For your mother's sake," and went out of the room. I am writing up this part of the diary whilst I am waiting for the coach, which is of course late, and the crucifix is still around my neck. Whether it is the old lady's fear, or the many ghostly traditions of this place, or the crucifix itself, I do not know, but I am not feeling nearly as easy in my mind as usual. If this book should ever reach Mina before I do, let it bring my goodbye. Here comes the coach. Alrighty. What was I gonna say? It was all very ridiculous, but I did not feel comfortable. Again, it feels like a mood. I like that description. It's like, this is ridiculous, but I'm uncomfy. And then he is a true solicitor because he's like, well, there's business to be done and I will allow nothing to interfere with it. It's like, my dude, it is an evil day. You're going to an evil castle. You are going to die. Well, there's business to be done, my good lady. I must go. It's not even like something like, oh, I must do it for my friends. I must do it for my business. And I do think it's really interesting as an English church, I've been taught to regard such things as in some measure idolatrous. It's been a while since I learned about it, but I remember learning about, I think they're the iconoclasts and the iconodules, and I forget which is which, but, some people in the church, were like, oh, icons are great, and let's make pictures of Jesus and put crosses up everywhere, and everywhere else they're like, oh, but if you pray to the cross, then you're praying to an idol, so no symbols allowed. Churches must be bland and boring and no images in them. And so I guess at this time and in England, or where he is in England, he's part of that group that it's oh, no images, must be boring, must. Because if you pray to an image, you're praying to an image, and it's graven, and you're not praying to actually God. So I don't know. I just find it interesting because I was not learning about these kinds of things in school, and then actually seeing them naturally come up is kind of fun. Let's see. It is good that the man listened to the old lady, I'll say that. And then I also love that the last line is, whether it's the old lady's fear or the many ghostly traditions of this place or the crucifix itself, I do not know, but I'm not feeling nearly as easy in my mind as usual. That it's like you arrived and the man pretended not to understand you, and then they crossed themselves when you mentioned the dude you were trying to go talk to. your buddy Dracula. Your bro Drac. When you mentioned him, they crossed themselves. And then this lady comes into your room, kneels down, is crying and screaming that you're gonna die because it's an evil day. And then you walk away and you're like, I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling a little uneasy. It's like, my dude, maybe think, maybe think a little harder about what you're doing here. Or if not, think harder at just, there's a reason that you're uneasy. These are not normal reactions. And granted, it is good that he says earlier, oh, there are suspicious people, that it does make a little more sense as to why he's not regarding them highly, is because he's heard, oh, they're really suspicious. And so when he sees them being suspicious, he's like, oh, they are more suspicious than I thought they were, as opposed to being like, maybe there's some credence to these rumors, Nice. Dustin says, I read Dracula a few years back. Maybe I should grab my copy. Well, since we're at the end, I don't know how useful that would be today, but next time, for sure, have it on hand for next time. Just to vary the joke a bit, the whole beginning of the book has the same vibes as, I'm going to this place called the Death Star to visit one Darth Sidious, but for some reason everyone tells me I'm crazy, and I don't get why. Yes, exactly. Aw, that's too bad, Death said. But don't worry, the VOD will be there, and so you can rewatch it. It's not long, it's only 30 minutes. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. I've been cordially invited to the Death Star to visit my friend, Darth Sidious. He's super nice and polite, but everybody I talk to begs for my life and says that it's dangerous and not to go. I wonder why. That's a little weird. For sure. But yes, so there are entries 1 and 2, May 3rd and May 4th. I hope that you guys had a good time. I plan to read entry 5 on, maybe I still have it up. let's go over here. I want to see. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, it is the long one. Okay, so I think yeah. And so number 5 is the one where we get in the coach, and we have a fun time in the coach, and then we get to the castle. So those are some great chapters, and hopefully, if all goes according to plan, I will be able to read those on Sunday successfully. But yes, so I hope you've had a good time. I know I have. I really love reading these books aloud. Like, it's just so much more fun to be able to pause and react and chuckle with you guys. So I hope you guys like it. Yep, very short stream, just reading the first couple entries. Yes, exactly. We get in the coach and we meet the driver, who's totally not Dracula and totally not menacing. Super normal dude. Yes, so I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I will be streaming tomorrow, so I will see you guys then. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I was gonna say, is that I had to do this now because I practice at night. Usually I'll stream at night, but I was like, okay, I have like an hour where I can get ready and go stream, and so I did, but a bit of a shorter one due to that. So yeah, I hope you guys have had a good time, and hello from the VOD if you're watching in the VOD. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.